Hello, my name is Drake, and I'm going to talk about the play Intimate Apparel. One of the things that stood out to me was how a bunch of the characters were in love but never really acted on it, or they've had complications with love and how they hadn't seen their future marriage prospect or whatever. The big one being Esther and Mr. Marks, how Esther was in love with George and she'd never seen him, barely even knew him, had no idea who he actually was or not. And then with Mr. Marks, how he was set to be married for 2 years, but still had no idea who his marriage prospect was as well. That was just kind of surprising. I was also really surprised when Mrs. Van Buren kissed Esther. I wasn't just really expecting that, and just kind of came out of nowhere. Some of the big themes of this play were definitely gender roles, and how there's this, I guess, stereotypes in a way of how George expected to get a job and work, so Esther couldn't, and all that. How Mrs. Van Buren was expected to have children, just kind of stuff like that, and how Esther wanted to have her beauty parlor in the future. That was just a big dream, but fell through. Another big theme was just stereotypes. That's from a cultural aspect, and how Esther and Mr. Marks couldn't act on their attraction to each other, even though it was very, very evident. But Mr. Marks was loyal through his religion not to touch a woman who was not his wife or anything like that. Esther did cross that barrier, but that was part of another point. And then lastly, the third theme is future, with how Esther wanted to have the beauty parlor, and also she wanted to get married. It was Mamie, she wanted to get married as well. It was just kind of future, a dream that people wanted to pursue. And it was very common throughout the whole play. And in relating to the 3 R's from lecture, I believe this play relates to the resists. And I feel that Lynn Nottage wrote it just to kind of reinforce the idea that back in the time there was the racial stereotyping, and how strong it was back then. It kind of proves that, and I guess reinforces in a way what it was and how it kind of was to be in that situation. And lastly, stereotypes do still exist today. It's gonna be hard to get rid of, but it happens, not just for races, but for everything. There's always stereotypes. It's nearly impossible to avoid, I guess, but it's getting better, I would say. This is perpetuated by how the way people are brought up, the involvement of groups such as the KKK, all that is just kind of part of history. People look at that, and this can be overcome by various movements and making people aware that everyone's equal and all that. And MLK was a big supporter of all that, so everything he did was a good way to help overcome these issues. My first question is, what would you have done when you first saw George's smoking jacket at Mamie's house? And the second question is, would you have given George the money or not, and why?